Picked up some new supplies from the art shop today. So that's good, right? Got our red and blue, which I like to use together, but I got some brown paper this time, so. Let's see, what are we looking at for reference today? Just to kick us off a little bit. Everybody check out the Kara app yet? Started posting some oldies over there. Oof, let's get my head out of the way of that thing. There we go. Try to use these in conjunction. It's always best to get the clearing of the throat out of the way as quick as possible, I think. Not quite the same red, is it? Oh, hello, Bosch. How you doing? Actually, let's go over to... Good evening. Good evening. A flying saucer, huh? Don't see a lot of those these days. start with maybe this one. Head out of the way here. It's not too bad. Good evening. Hola, Mr. Bonilla. Good afternoon. Or evening, I guess we're getting into now. Good evening. That's fine. Just picked up a new sketchbook. I haven't done the brown paper thing in a while, so I picked up a sketchbook and today specifically for the Bramble project. I have a brown one lying around, but I like about this is I can do the white on top of it. So it's going to be a mix of this and some brush on ink and stuff on here too. Kind of kicked it off with the girl's head off of some Pinterest reference. It's not exactly her, but I figured it was a good place to start. I just kind of picked the hair. It was kind of like somewhat similar to some of the character design stuff. So when I spotted that one, I was like, yeah, maybe it'd be fun to draw her hair, see how it kind of fits together a little better. My hair has never been quite that long, so got a little long in high school, but never not that long. Or sorry, secondary school. But yeah, definitely nothing quite like that. And I was a good boy and finally cut my hair in shape this week, so kind of worked my way through my post-semester blitz, and that helped a lot. And then today I fixed a couple of, hopefully fixed one of them, both of them, definitely one of them, on my little camper project. I had this weird problem with this water level that measures the amount of water in the water tank underneath the truck, underneath the SUV, and hasn't been working properly for a while, and I just haven't had time to delve into it. And so I reserved Saturday morning today to check it out and learn how to use it's called a multimeter, which is a tool for testing electrical current. So I'm testing the wires and I'm seeing what's working, what's not working, and then I test the ground wire, and it's not getting any power through it. So that's interesting. So it looks okay where it's at. It's like anything's broken. And kind of follow it back to where it's grounded to the electrical system, and it had come loose. So it was literally like a 5-minute fix that took me, an hour to find. But now it works perfectly. I was worried I'd have to replace the whole gauge. What's funny is actually this is relatively simple stuff. Like if you were to show this to your average, licensed and trained electrician, it's all pretty basic. I just, I'm a student of it to a certain degree on my own, but certainly I would not rely on myself for professional work. But and I definitely got help when I was building the original system. I joined a membership where these people that build camper vans professionally out in Colorado, they had like a little forum where you'd ask questions and they would respond, usually within about 24 hours. So trying to figure out what size wires to use and fuses and other little things that I'd never considered. They were really, really helpful with that. It wasn't cheap. It was like $150 a month. But, just to get an electrician to show up at your house would cost that. So it's 100% worth it for me when I was doing that. So definitely don't take all the credit. And this is something actually I should be able to figure out a lot sooner, but I just hadn't made time for it. And then the other issue, actually I almost shocked myself because I accidentally tapped, I was tightening something up and I tapped the metal against another piece of metal that aren't supposed to connect to each other. It's a good way to send sparks flying through your workspace. There's not a lot of space in there, so it was a little exciting, but I didn't actually get shocked. I was just, almost did. But there were definitely sparks. And so got it working. I'm very happy. It's fully functional. And then did join that Kara app. So if anyone hasn't seen that, I need to do a regular post about it. But did a story about it yesterday. See what's up over there. Seems like a lot of artists are moving over there real quick. It's nice because it's just photos, so you can't upload videos or live stream or any of that. It's kind of like a blend between Instagram and Twitter. And actually, Bobby Chu did a video about it today. He was talking about kind of where it came from, the person that started it, and she's a photographer. And they're kind of getting swamped with new users. But all like the major illustrators and concept artists and a lot of comic book people are all kind of migrating over there because of Instagram's policy about AI and the training models. So we're just like, Instagram has become less and less fun to use. You have to like work in order to appease whatever shifts they're making to the algorithm rather than dealing with the audiences that you've collected. And just become a bear to mess with. I spent a lot of time and effort figuring it out. I think that was she won the lawsuit apparently. She actually, it was a while ago, she lost the initial lawsuit I think, and then she appealed it and won on the appeal. Because there's this kind of thing, where artists will take somebody else's photographs and make paintings or drawings of them and sell them as if they were originals. And this guy had won some kind of award or something using her imagery. Without any credit or compensation. Yeah. And there's often been that kind of attitude. That's like the famous Obama poster. I think his name was Michael Ferry, I want to say his name was, but he basically taken a photograph and then just made it posterized. And for the kind of that red, yellowish, and blue poster, he got sued and lost. I think it was a Time magazine photographer image or something. That was a rather famous case because people aren't always sure what the limit is on how much things have to be changed or in order for it to count, or so it's not so direct. And plus, it's propaganda, supporting my various assorted war criminal presidents, but that's bad enough on its own. There's a very good reason the United States does not participate in The Hague. So we'd have a whole lot of presidents in prison. At least they're nice prisons, That's like one of the reasons they forget to mention why we basically stopped most of our activities in Iraq was that the Iraqi government, the one that the United States have put in place, basically supported, said they were going to start charging our soldiers with United States soldiers with war crimes when they accidentally kill a bunch of people based off of bad intelligence or whatever. And that's what basically ended the Iraq War. Local government was like, thanks for getting rid of that one guy. Well, yeah, there's so they have, like, when I say accident, that means like maybe there was some bad intelligence used. So like they've been told something and maybe it wasn't true, and they target that, whatever that was, kill the people there, and then they find out afterward that it was the wrong people. I tend to think it's the responsibility to err on side of caution, that you don't do that. It's like the famous no-knock raids, where the police will show up in the middle of the night here, and sometimes they get the wrong address, and they'll throw, it's called flashbang grenades into a house. So they just they're not supposed to really explode or cause physical damage. They can, but mostly supposed to cause noise and shock to the people inside. Yeah, so like and I come from a family where my father and my brothers all spent time in Iraq as Marines during the Obama administration, actually, for my brothers, and it wasn't good for them. So I don't particularly like any of my presidents. But thankfully, I never joined the military, so never had to worry about that. I almost did when I was in just before going to college as a way to pay for college, but backed out of it last minute. But it's the trick of dealing with people who desire power, right? So even if you want to go down the conspiracy route and say, these aren't the real people in charge, these are still people who have spent their lives seeking power. And that's usually the first clue you shouldn't, support someone like that, is that they've, that's been the primary pursuit of their life, is power over others. And that's pretty much every politician. It's like if you look at the American presidents since the older Bush, so the Bush who was president after Reagan, he was actually a former head of the CIA. People forget in the late 70s, and it was supposedly being reformed. But every president, including him, so him, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Trump, they've all promised kind of less war, less a more humble. I think Bush, his thing, but George G.W. Bush, he was saying he wanted didn't want America shouldn't be the policeman of the world, because that's what we saw with Bill Clinton, who was invading and dealing with the stuff going on in Bosnia in the 90s after the fall of the Soviet Union. And Clinton, he said, we needed to work on our peace dividend. So when the Soviet Union fell, when he was running for president, he was saying, we need to take advantage of peacetime to, make a better world, right? Can do things in our country that we couldn't do before because now we don't have to worry about the military. Immediately got involved in a lot of military conflict. And same with Obama. He was going to do less, and he was going to investigate those who had done war crimes. And as soon as he became president, he changed his mind, or had it changed. People always speculate they take him and have him watch a video as soon as they become president, and it explains things to them. I don't know that that's true, but I've always thought that was an interesting theory. And of course Trump, he and his argument for peace was that it was just bad business, and which I thought was interesting. Certainly is. I mean, depends on whose business, but his big thing was, why are we putting so much money into all these things that are for other people's defense, theoretically, when they should be paying for it themselves? They got the money for it. Trump, though, I have to say, he was the most, at least as far as foreign policy goes, the most peace president we've ever had in my entire life. He didn't start any new wars. He planned the end of the Afghanistan conflict, which Biden delayed by several months. For some reason, he reset it on September 11th, which is a weird day to flee the country you invaded because of that day. But and that was a big mess when he left it because he delayed it, and Taliban were not happy with the delay. So that was total chaos, and left behind a bunch of people who supported, the U.S. efforts there. Those people probably aren't around anymore. So there's Biden's contribution. So. Next, I think Obama started 3. Destabilize the Middle East with his efforts in Libya, which led to ISIS and open slave markets in Libya, and then the immigration crisis in Europe. That was the big cause of that. Was that stuff. Well, he got a Nobel Prize before he became president, so he got it for rhetoric. But probably should have been withdrawn. And then then there was Syria, of course, which we didn't need to be involved with at all. And I'm trying to forget the other one that he started. But they're all in that same area. Syria, Libya, something. I forget the third one. Well, that's the thing, is the United States, it has this unique position in the world. It's what they call a unipolar world. So it used to be a bipolar world, where you had the Soviet Union and the United States kind of balanced against each other. Not perfectly. The United States had a better position, but you had these kind of two major powers. So it's you had it's like, you probably heard the term first world and third world, right? But no one ever talks about the second world. Second world was the Soviet Union and their allies. So third world was basically countries that were not affiliated with either, at least not directly, the United States or the Soviet Union. And so you kind of had this bipolar power going on, with them kind of balancing each other out to a certain degree. And then when the Soviet Union fell, it became a unipolar world. And what we've seen, though, at least recently, is that the effect of that is, I think it's part of the reason why we're having so many economic and social issues in the United States at the moment, is the effects of that dominance and people trying to maintain it. So I think a lot of the conflict we have in Ukraine right now is a result of the United States being unwilling to treat other countries as if they're sovereign countries. It's like, if the United States had been doing what Russia had been doing, what the United States was doing, say in Canada or Mexico, we would have invaded those countries a long time ago. Moscow is only a few hundred kilometers from the border of Ukraine, and we're planting major missile. Trump put major missile systems into Ukraine, and if that had been, if well, we saw what happened to the Bay of Pigs disaster. The world almost went to nuclear war in the '60s. But it's funny though. The funny thing when the Soviet Union tried to put nukes in Cuba, people forget why they did that. There's the way if you read about it with from if you're in an American history class and you read about that event, the standoff that happened there, it's almost like the Soviet Union did this crazy thing where they started putting nukes in Cuba, and how crazy of that, for them to do that, like bringing us to the brink of war. But what they forget about, what they don't mention rather, is the United States had put missiles in Turkey before that, and that was the Soviet Union's response. That's not that the Soviet Union was a good government; they were terrible to their people, but they weren't putting nukes there for no reason. Well, it's this thing where we kind of treat history as if it starts from the moment that's the most advantageous for us. Whatever the country is. So you look at like what happened in what's happening in Israel at the moment. There's a reason why. There are multiple reasons why Hamas has maintained power there, and some of those are directly Israel's fault. Some of them are indirectly their fault. But and I think all these problems are easy enough to solve. I mean, it's not going to be pleasant for anybody, but it's not that it's not as complicated as people like it to make it out to be when it's easy to understand. And a lot of people seem to know more of what's going on, which I think is mostly good. But it's interesting, how the opinions change, the United States anyway, depending on who you're talking to. Why it'll happen. Because of my, background, living internationally and speaking different languages and things like that. I kind of sit outside of the common opinion. So, like, I'm talking to people, like, the things I'll talk about can freak people out to a certain degree, because their opinions, that people have are dictated by things other than the facts of the situation. It's more like a team sport or something. I'm sure it's the same way in other countries about different things. But I've just really noticed it ever since living abroad a couple different times and coming back. Fun going back to this paper. Let's see how this nib handles here. Yeah, because you'll like almost like write another personality into your brain. so you kind of get these different perspectives in there, and see, that one doesn't want to write, just might be too dirty. Let's try it now. There it goes, now it's just dirty. And that kind of goes back to that whole AI thing. So, with a lot of these AI systems, it's destroying the need for people to learn other languages, like at all. Most Americans don't need to, and if you don't need to, you don't do something typically. So, because most people here, they're never going to be in a situation where they need to speak any other language, just because everybody's learning English. But yeah, if you look into what like AI has done to translators and language localization, like it's kind of making it unnecessary. Some people see it as a good thing. So like one of the things they can do is you can get, instead of having somebody voice Brad Pitt for a foreign movie, like a different person, does the voice in Spanish or in Russian or Italian or whatever, Japanese. Now they can take his voice and just process it through AI, and he will speak fluent Japanese. And so that's one of the things that they can do now with these systems. And so you can, another thing they can do is, because of the way the visuals work, they can actually match the mouth to the movement. So it's no longer, a different movement of the mouth that doesn't match the words in the translation. Now the mouth can actually match what they're saying in real time. And then I guess they've done it in some movies recently where they wanted the actor to redo lines, but instead of flying out the actor to redo the scene, they just use the systems in order to replace it. Yeah, probably. That's what's is starting to be done with these movies. So I do try to keep abreast of kind of what's going on with these systems. I just so I do think, to a certain degree, they are here to stay. And I think it's important to be aware of their impact and their influence on what we're doing, and especially for myself, because I don't want to have it impact or influence what I'm doing at all. I'd rather treat it as if it didn't exist. What's going on over there? Alright, seems to be some kind of disconnect over there. A little bit better. Just looking over at the other live stream, it's a little bit bright. A little bit of that. Let's see if I can. So I put on Let's see if I can grab that. I think that helped a little bit. It's a little shiny just over on the other streams. Yeah, so it's a curious set of problems. I was watching a video of the guy. He was kind of describing what the resistors really are. Is they're kind of like what are called, when I was a kid, were called Mad Libs, and basically these are books where you would kind of fill in the blank. So it would like tell a story, but it would have like certain words would be missing, and you would write them in yourself. I don't know if kids use those anymore or not, but and that's kind of what it's doing. Is basically it's doing these Mad Libs, which is why you get these weird answers online. Like I was commenting the other day. I was just trying to find the shortcut on the Google search for how to combine all of my layers into a new layer on top in Photoshop. And the answer the system gave me was wrong. And the correct answer was on a website down below. But people are looking, asking more specific kinds of questions, and those questions are often like not just mine is kind of basic, but like they're wrong in like a dangerous way. Which it's no good. Yeah, so I saw it for myself too, so it wasn't like it's not like some weird internet thing. It's like, and I wasn't trying to ask the kind of questions they were asking. I was just looking for some general information. And that's why the thing I just don't get about the this approach to Google, because like they need people to advertise on Google. So ideally what they would have is there'd be a website that would have the correct answer, and they would direct me to that website, because they'll be the one who's advertising at the top of the list, to solve my problem that I had a question about. Yeah, I think I saw that one about smoking during pregnancy. But it's like, if they're not going to be directing people to sites online, then what's Google for? Like, if I'm not using it to get, good information from reliable sources, and they're not directing me to those independent sources, what am I really looking at? How do I know that they're going to give me the correct information I want? I mean, authoritative sources can be bad enough as it is already. Like, I was in a children's museum the other day, and it had, it's the Children's Science Museum, so it's not like a really great museum like the Museum of Natural History or something like that. It's mostly a lot of kids stuff, and like it's kind of a play space almost, more than an actual science space. But there's nothing wrong with it. I was there with my nieces and my sister, her four daughters and their friend yesterday, and they had this thing. It was talking about diet and the importance of eating a healthy amount of pasta and that, and avoiding fatty foods and red meat, and fact is, when I've been my healthiest is when I was eating the most fat and the most meat. So and we're working on getting back to that. if I ate my healthy portions of wheat, I bloat up really fast. Put on a lot of weight very, very quickly. And so that's that's the authoritative source. And we found out a number of years ago now, it's been almost 20 years, but basically the food pyramid that shows wheat being at the bottom, and then meat and that just being below sugar, was actually paid for by wheat lobbyists to have that put in. Had nothing to do with science at all. It was advertising. But I'm like, looking around the science museum, there's all these fat kids running around. From, following that dietary advice. Welcome to America. Now you go to Eastern Europe or Russia and they're eating a lot of sala, and I forget the other one, those meat jellos are basically just fat, and they're like super slim and fit over there, some basic calisthenics and whole food. And it keeps them healthy. They cut back on the alcohol, do a little better, but I even saw a few of the museum workers masked up. I'm like, I do realize that those don't quite work the way they said they worked. They effective for certain things, but not for viruses. In fact, if you read the warning labels on the masks, it says directly on there, is not suitable for preventing transmission of illness. It's right on there. I remember when I got mine during the pandemic, and these were like slightly better than the N95 ones. The company's actually out of business now, which is funny. It's a hard shell mask that you put filters into that you could replace. I was like, oh, this will work great. But it says right on the packaging, does not prevent transmission of viruses and bacteria. Really what they're for is like large particles, and for doctors to avoid coughing into a patient's wounds, so they're not spitting in them. Yeah, if you go read like the labels on the masks and things from the COVID era, like it says right on there, they don't prevent the transmission of viruses. It just prevents you from spitting on somebody. And as soon as you sneeze or cough in one of those, you have to get it changed anyway because you got this wet thing on your face. So one thing that delayed me from going back to the classroom, because I was living in Florida, and mostly in Florida we'd already stopped wearing masks, in most places by a certain point. And but the school we were required to, so they wanted us back in the classroom and masked up. And I was just like, I don't think I should have to go to class masked. It doesn't do anything besides make it hard for people to understand, and portrays this idea that they're somehow quarantining when as soon as they leave my classroom, or just before they were in my classroom, they were all having lunch in the cafeteria together without their masks on. I watch these students who wear masks all day long very dutifully, walk over to the lunch table down the hall and take it off to eat their lunch. I'm like, this is completely insane. It's like, if they're so important, then the students should be eating in isolation outside, away from each other, scattered around the lawns or whatever, if that's the actual fact of the case. Well, no, there's no correct way of using them. As soon as you adjust it or touch it with your hands, it's contaminated. As soon as if there's any cracks in it, at all, at any point, it's contaminated. Like, you can't stop it from getting in. Like, the amount of reduction is so small, it's completely insignificant, and just doesn't do anything. In fact, that's what they were saying when the pandemic first started, is that masks are a waste of time for people to wear during a pandemic. And then some of the people that are more supportive of it, they'll show images, from I think it was the Spanish flu or the influenza, early 20th century, people wearing masks. But the masks they were wearing were also completely ineffective. Yeah, it depended on the United States. Depended on the state you were in. So California and New York were very, very strict. It's one of the reasons why so many, the housing prices, property prices in Florida skyrocketed during the pandemic, is because they reduced the laws for what was required very, very quickly. So it was originally pretty strict like everybody, and then they pulled back right away. And so a lot of people left other states and moved to Florida just to kind of be able to do whatever they want. And then we'd have politicians famously talking about everyone needs to be masked up and isolation and all that, and then there'd be pictures of them vacationing in Florida, like what's her face, that younger lady from New York. It's her and her boyfriend were out in Florida having to go have a nice time vacationing, while she was, 2 days before, she was yelling at everybody on Instagram about how they need to obey the quarantines and all that business. What was it? There was that guy who was heading up the pandemic stuff in England, and he got busted sneaking over to his girlfriend's place. The governor of California was having big dinner parties out in public with his friends while telling everybody to stay home. Certain point, I stop believing a word these people are saying. I don't know. They've there's some studies they've shown where if you look at if you look at charts of COVID disease, it tends to track based off of weather, not off of how closely people were following protocols. So if you were to take a chart of Madrid and not know it's Madrid, and you were to put it next to some other place in Spain, and try to guess when Madrid became less strict and this other city became more strict, you wouldn't be able to tell. You wouldn't be able to track it on the graph. They've done that in the United States, even counties that are next to each other. I had full-blown COVID last year. I was out camping, about a 10-hour drive from where I live, and came down with a sudden fever. Got up in the morning and was like, oh, it was no good. Why am I so cold when it's not cold? And by lunchtime that day, I couldn't taste anything. So I was like, oh. I think I had COVID the first summer, too. I didn't have the loss of taste. But the tests back then weren't any good at all. Like, you couldn't measure the antigens very well. So it didn't show up as being positive. But I was sick for like a month. And then I had a lingering cough for like 3 months. That first summer. And I was, totally in isolation. I wasn't going anywhere except the grocery store. I was living in a state, where I didn't know anybody really because I had just moved there. Growing vegetables in my closet, like leafy greens, so I could avoid going to the store more often. That all sucked a lot. Maybe, I know, in New York, one of the things that Trump did initially was they set up some hospitals on aircraft carriers outside the city, because a lot of people were getting sick. People in certain categories were the ones that were dying. It was older people and then people that have serious health issues or are obese or other things. And New York, what they did is instead of using these hospitals, these temporary hospitals they'd set up, they sent sick inmates from prisons into old people's homes. So they have places, these homes where a lot of old people live together, are taken care of by nurses and other people. And instead of using these temporary hospitals where they could keep everybody isolated, they sent these prisoners and other sick people into these elderly people's living spaces. Killed tens of thousands of people. And they were talking about that governor becoming president for a while. He had a sex scandal, so he got he's disappeared from politics. But he was supposed to challenge Trump, and this thing that he did, it never really got brought up in the news. You'd only hear about it from alternative media pointing it out. I mean, you could read about it in a newspaper or something like that, but nobody reads those. So it wasn't a conspiracy theory. I think it was something that actually happened. But yeah, they didn't have to do that. The mayor of Madrid. I don't know anything about Spanish politics. But oh, it's a circus everywhere. So we just had a major art school announce their closing in 3 days in the United States. The University of the Arts in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. It's been around for 150 years. And basically, 2 years ago, they were given a whole bunch of money, like $667 million. And they blew it all in 2 years. Like it was a bunch of donations to the school. And killed it. Similar thing has happened with PAFA, Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, which has been around for I think 150, 200 years, something like that. And they basically the institution still exists, but it's no longer a university. We're talking about doing classes and gallery shows and things there now. So, yeah, but that was just announced the other day. This is kind of crazy. Oh yeah, time to go to sleep, right? It's only the middle of the night, or early in the morning, I guess, getting to that point. Have a good night. minute. Thanks for popping in there. Just need to stand up. Ugh. Everybody come over to the YouTube or Twitch side of things. Nice to get some ink on my fingers, right? Let's move these magnets out of the way. The paper's actually somewhat upright for those that are keeping track for whatever reason. So I have a large drafting table. Which is really nice to have. Good evening, everybody popping in and out. You're having a good weekend. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and call it there for tonight. So thanks everybody that came in, and talk to you next time.